Running a little bit late tonight. I know, this is supposed to be the fifth one. Just called this afternoon. Did you end up canceling for who's on then next week? Okay. There's only some president of some church body, Missouri somewhere, some Harrison. He won't mind. He's busy. He's very busy this time of year. All right. And yeah, I know. Roman centurions scare me. Get them here early. Take good care of them. Just give me a second. Catch my breath. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fifth segment of our special Dateline Jerusalem series, where tonight we just take one more opportunity here to investigate the strange circumstances that are wrapped around this story of the death and the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. Who was this Jesus? Who is this Jesus? Was he a revolutionary? Was he a prophet? Was he a faithful interpreter of the Word of God? Was he a radical with just no respect at all for tradition? And what about his body? Was it actually stolen? Or do we believe the stories that he had come back to life again? Joining us this evening is a man who's going to help us straighten it all out, a guy who knew Jesus very, very closely, the youngest of all the disciples within the group called the 12, John. John, it is a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for making the trip.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Just have a seat here if you would, please. You are someone we have seriously been looking forward to talking with.
Thank you. But don't end your sentence with a preposition. You want to say, I've looked forward to talking with you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I don't mean to be rude. I've just been much more aware of words lately.
Words. Okay. John, you perhaps seem to be one most uniquely qualified to perhaps answer the question and the dilemma for us as to just exactly who Jesus is, or rather, who Jesus was. Whatever. If you could straighten that out for us, please.
Both of those work. Jesus was, Jesus is, will be works too. Jesus is a difficult person to pin a verb tense.
Okay, so this would seem to indicate that you're really not that certain yourself whether Jesus is alive or dead.
No, not that. I have no doubt about that. I saw him die. I saw his corpse, and then I saw him alive. He's definitely alive, but he was also definitely dead. Jesus was alive, Jesus is alive, existed always before, existed always after. See what I mean? He's kind of hard on grammar.
Well, I see. Verb tenses aside, how would you describe Jesus? Would you say he's a prophet, or is he a revolutionary? Is he a religious conservative, or is he a religious radical?
Yes.
What do you mean, John, by yes? I mean, those two terms were contradictory.
No, they're just not very complete. Jesus is definitely a prophet. He spoke the word of God. He brought God's will to bear on the world, here and now, and looked and asked to what God was going to do. That's a prophet. But he was also a revolutionary. He certainly turns things upside down. He changes how we see power, how we see God, how we see everything.
On that point, we have heard of Jesus turning upside down tables in the temple courtyard area?
Well, that's not exactly what I had in mind, but yes, he did do that.
We understand, though, that was kind of a rather public display of anger that was really kind of uncalled for or no apparent reason. Perhaps you could explain, for the benefit of our viewers here, exactly why it would be that Jesus would engage in such, violent activity.
Well, it was a statement. Everything Jesus did said something. It was almost as if you were listening to his actions as much as watching them. Yes, he was very angry, but he had a reason to be. I would hardly call what he did vandalism. He was acting against the activities that had no place in the temple.
Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a second. I did a little research on this. For our non-Jewish viewers, let me clarify. Worship at the temple at that time often required animal sacrifices. The animals to be sacrificed had to be perfectly pure, without the slightest imperfection. They had to be inspected, though, first by the priest, and if they were found to have any type of flaw of any kind, they would be unusable for that particular time. Therefore, to save some from having to carry these animals on their shoulders for like 100 miles or so, pre-approved animals were sold there in the courtyards, weren't they, that people could just buy and have ready. I understand there was even some kiosks up there that would suggest that travelers could exchange their foreign currency for temple currency. Is that correct?
That was a little wordy, but accurate.
Okay. And Jesus, as I understand it, attacked legitimate businessmen who were actually working with the full approval of the temple authorities?
As I said before, it was a statement. It wasn't about whether or not people selling doves had a vending license. It was about people getting caught up in silly regulations and fixating whether someone's goat had a pimple on its left ear, instead of focusing on the glory of God. People were trying to buy off God, and those so-called legitimate businessmen were encouraging this nonsense.
So it was an attack on the temple merchants as much as it was an attack on the temple practices.
Yes, it wasn't really about goats or buildings or exchange rates. It was always about true worship and hearing the word of God.
But Jesus did, in fact, threaten to destroy the temple, didn't he?
Jesus wasn't Osama bin Laden. He wasn't going to blow anything up.
Okay. This is the quote, however. Correct me if I'm wrong. Destroy this temple, Jesus said, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Are you saying here, John, that Jesus was misquoted?
No, he said it all right. I've been thinking a great deal about these past few days, actually. And I've come to believe that he wasn't really talking about the temple.
Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up.
But the temple he was talking about wasn't Jerusalem's #1 tourist attraction. He was talking about himself, the temple of his body. It was destroyed, but in 3 days it was raised up again.
So Jesus was comparing himself to the temple.
Yes, I believe so. I mean, it makes sense. The temple was where people would go to meet God, but that's all changed now. This is a way in which Jesus is truly revolutionary. Heaven and earth don't meet in some architectural wonder downtown here. Heaven and earth meet in Jesus.
Heaven and earth meet in Jesus? That's quite a claim.
I realize that, but it's true. It's who Jesus is.
And that takes us back to the original question, just exactly who Jesus is, or who this Jesus of Nazareth was.
I've been developing this fascination for words lately, as I mentioned before. I've been trying to remember things that Jesus said both verbally and in his actions. I've been writing a little list of things. Maybe someday I'll write it all down, although I don't think I could ever really get it all. Even if the whole world were just one big library, it still wouldn't be big enough to hold everything. One of the lists I've been making is a list of the ways Jesus answered that very question.
You mean about what Jesus said, who he is?
Yes, that would probably be the best way to answer your question.
Do you happen to have that list with you, John?
I do.
Great.
Even though your producer insisted on typing it into a teleprompter, it's not really necessary. I know it all by heart.
Very well, then. Who exactly, then, did Jesus say that he was, or who did he say that he is?
See, he's just hard on grammar.
You're telling me.
Some of the things he said over and over, at different times, worded slightly differently. I'll skip over the more repetitive ones.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, he said, I am the Messiah,
Messiah.
from the Hebrew, Messiah, Christos in Greek. You would say something like oil smeared or anointed. It means God's chosen person.
Okay, I think I get it.
Okay. And then, I am the bread of life.
So he's bread.
He's what you need to keep going. He's God's way of taking care of us. Sometimes he put it, I am the living bread come down from heaven.
That is very interesting.
More than interesting. This isn't just academic. This is the meaning of life we're talking about here.
Of course. John, please go on.
I am the light of the world.
Light of the world.
Jesus, that is, not me.
I understood.
Jesus makes it so that we can see what's really going on, what really matters. Let's see. He also says, I am the one who testifies for myself.
What in the world does that mean?
The only one who can truly define Jesus is Jesus. It's because of that one that I'm reading this list to you. We can't put Jesus into a pigeonhole. He's so far beyond anything in human experience. I am the good shepherd, and I am the gate of the sheepfold.
I'm not really sure I get that gate one.
Jesus gathers people, protects them, keeps them together like a shepherd.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. That really makes it sound like Jesus is claiming to be God.
He gets more to the point. Listen to these. I am from above. I am not of this world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection
Slow down.
and the life. I am in the Father. I am the Son of God. I am.
Okay, hold on for a second. Just in the interest of time and for the sake of our viewers here, would you please just pick one of those sayings, the one that you think maybe most clearly or best describes who Jesus was?
Out of the things he said,
Yes, if you would, please.
I am.
I'm sorry, did you mean to finish that sentence? I am what?
That's it. Just, I am.
I am. That's sort of obvious, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think so. But you'd be surprised how many people don't catch that one.
Don't catch what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed, when God spoke to Moses out of the burning bush.
Okay, yes. I remember that story.
Well, Moses asked God what his name was and who he should say had sent him, and God said, I am who I am. Tell them that I am has sent you.
So Jesus, he's saying that he is God.
Yeah, he is.
But what do you say about him? We have the reports that Jesus himself reported that of himself. But what would you say, John? What do you think? Who do you say Jesus is?
I said before that only Jesus can truly define who Jesus is. Nothing I could say could really be adequate. There will always be more to Jesus than I could tell you, but since you insist, I'll take a crack at it. I've become fascinated with the words of late, and here's why. Jesus is the Word of God.
How is that possible?
I have no idea, but it's true. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning. All things were made through him, and without him, not anything made was made. In him was life, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That's who Jesus is.
You have got to write that down before you forget. And I really want to thank you for being here. Our time is actually running out here, and I'm not exactly sure if what you've shared has clarified anything for us here, but I will say that you've given us a lot to think about.
You're welcome. And I hope you do think about it. And I hope your audience does too. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you, John. Thank you again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Youngest of the 12, John, the apostle. Our interview with John was supposed to be the last of a five segment of conversations about the crucifixion of Jesus. But just this afternoon, we ended up hearing and getting word of an informant of the Roman military who promises, if he could be on this show, he promises in his own words that he will literally blow the roof off of these conflicting claims of the followers of Jesus Christ and the Roman Empire. So, turn in, join us next week one more time. This is Dateline, Jerusalem. Good night.